Living in Los Angeles in 2020, one of the things that I'm really aware of is that we live in a time where there's a lot of focus on individual wellness. So there are whole sections of Los Angeles that's like all there is juice bars and yoga and spinning classes and Pilates and like Brentwood. It's like, what are people doing? Do they have jobs? They're just drinking juice and running all day. Which is beautiful. I mean, I like both juice and running. I mean, nothing against it. So LA is a very health conscious, but I don't think it's just LA. I actually think in the United States in general, there's been more consciousness around nutrition and around physicality and around working out. And it wasn't like that even 15 years ago. I mean, just as an example, I got sober 17 years ago. And in that time, there was a gym in the treatment program I got sober in. And only like 2 or 3 people actually worked out in the gym. There were 100 people in the treatment program I went through, but very few people went to the gym. I mean, it just wasn't that popular a thing to do, to go to the gym all the time, 17, 20 years ago. And same thing with eating. I mean, the food was, fried chicken patties, rice and beans, and, it wasn't like, vegan, et cetera, et cetera. But that's like rapidly changed. And even clients, the clients that we get now, when am I going to the gym? When can I work out? And it's almost all of them, or definitely the majority. 80% of clients are very health conscious. Whether they're struggling with it or whether they have a good routine, they're really conscious of health. And that's just a reflection of what's happening in the larger society. And I sort of kick back because whenever I see something change, at a social level, I'm like, what's going on? And I had talked about in some previous videos the kind of breakdown of tradition and cultural containers, and that we live in a time where kind of everything is up for grabs, meaning you can kind of interpret things how you want and kind of do what you want, and you can't really decide how to be in the future based on, how people were in the past, because everything has changed so rapidly. I think one of the responses that people have had to the insecurity of our reality is to look at different places and new places for salvation. Salvation is a religious word, generally. Salve, it means to kind of heal. Salvation also means to be saved, in some sense. And, religiously, the salve came from service. Salvation came from giving yourself to God. It came from a certain way of living. Because we no longer have the same kinds of religious consciousness, at least not nearly as powerfully as we used to, we look for salvation now in different areas. I think a lot of people look for salvation in the gym. And they just think, if I could just get my body to a certain place, if I could just, eat the perfect foods, if I can just, get everything clean and pure inside, and I can become a pure vessel, then I'll be saved. They're not thinking that way, but their behavior is speaking in that language. And so on the one hand, look, I'm a fan of, being healthy. I am, a postmodern man living in Los Angeles in 2020. I ride my bike, I swim, I wake up to green juice. I mean, I do all of this stuff. At the same time, I have this double consciousness where I'm like, listen, I'm still going to die. It's not going to make me a good person. It's like, it's just this kind of obsession, that we all live with. And there are worse obsessions, so I'm not, that upset about it. And when it comes to how that interfaces with recovery, I think we've got to be wise. I think we've got to know that not all problems can be solved in the gym and can be solved based on what we eat and with the diet. That can solve some problems. And sometimes those things are connected to, obviously how we sleep, how we feel, or a lot of the time they are. But they're not everything, Some of the stuff we're working on is in the domains of morality. Some of the stuff we're working on is in the domain of character and integrity, and you can be a really fit person that eats really healthy and have no integrity. You can also be a really fit person who eats in a very healthy manner but has a tremendous amount of shame. And sometimes I actually think that we're all so ashamed about how selfish we are and narcissistic we are these days, that we're working doubly hard for salvation, because we walk around guilty, sort of saying, something's not right here. There's some kind of different way of being. So on the one hand, I'm pro-health because I'd be insane not to be pro-health. On the other hand, I think we have to be wise and make distinctions about what's actually happening with us and what's motivating, what we're doing. And is this the actual way to meet the need, the existential need that we have as humans for salvation and to heal?